Hey guys, it's Emily Rand with Yahoo Esports, and today I am back with Kelsey Moser, European LCS extraordinaire, and today we're going to talk about the finals and the third place match over in Europe. Kelsey, how's it going?
I also really like the cadence in your voice where you're just like, hey guys, it's Emily
Hey
from Yahoo
guys, what's
Esports.
up?
It's really good. So we're going to be talking about the EU LCS matches. Do we want to just talk about the third place match first? Makes
Yeah.
sense. It's going to be happening first.
Yeah.
So Misfits versus Fnatic. This is an interesting one because I think these teams have both played a little bit unconventionally,
Yeah.
as you would say. And I feel like it took them a little bit, but at least Misfits now understands maybe where they're strong. I feel like they do like an experimental draft in the first game to test the waters, and it usually goes really poorly. Usually a lot of losing lane matchups for some reason, like the one with where they lost to the Renekton and the LeBlanc, right? And it's like, why are you giving Unicorns of Love strong solo lanes? Things like this. So I, generally speaking, think Misfits takes a little while. Eventually they switched it up a little bit. You had the Lulu mid lane, which I actually think is pretty good, and I've been kind of expecting it to come out eventually. And then with Fnatic, on the other hand, I feel like we're actually maybe drifting a little bit away from them understanding their strengths and where they're going with the level 1 lane swaps and things like this, because I think that while their formula may be really obvious, they've been able to execute it even when it's extremely telegraphed with, oh, we have Shen top, Aurelion Sol mid, Elise, and Camille support. Like, I wonder what they're going to do. I think they're going to gank bottom lane at some point. So I think that's, even though it was really telegraphed, and maybe that's why Fnatic wanted to switch it up and try to get the kill snowball on the AD carry early on in exchange for the turret trade or whatever it is that they were trying to do with the level 1 lane swaps. I think that they thought that maybe they were too predictable in their drafts, but teams didn't seem to be able to react very well anyway. So, what are your thoughts on how this is gonna go in particular?
I'm giving, I want to give Fnatic the edge just because I think that their style is a poor fit for what Misfits want to do unless they somehow show that they can kind of combat that style. We saw this matchup, and I'm not saying the two teams haven't evolved since then because they both have. And I actually, when I saw the Lulu mid, I was like, Lulu mid, what? And then they did a good job of making sure they had pushing lanes. It ended up working out really well. I still don't think it's something they could pull out at any time, but I think in that case it really played to their strengths and kind of what they want to do. But I think that Fnatic's attention to side lanes is still going to overwhelm Misfits a bit, because I think if you look at where they sometimes have issues, it's affecting those side lanes, or I guess pushing them early, or getting Cacao into the side lanes early on, which is something that I think, especially towards the end of the season, we've seen him still have those games where he kind of just doesn't do a lot early. And that's going to be a problem against Fnatic, I think, because they're perfectly fine with doing that and then splitting off and kind of running people around the map. I think the lane swaps were interesting, albeit a bit misguided. I felt like, I guess kind of to your point, they recognized their strength and they were like, okay, we're going to go full ham on this and just focus on the laning matchups in the side lanes to the detriment of everything else. And they definitely lost a lot more early than I think they wanted to, or I'm not really sure what they expected, because obviously they know they're not going to be able to take, they know they're not going to be able to take the top turret, right? I feel like there's in no world do they think they're going to be able to trade the turret immediately. So then you're really just sacrificing it for the laning matchup, and that didn't work out. Against, like, if they tried that against Misfits, I think it might throw Misfits off a bit more than it did G2, just because I felt like...
Okay, here's...
Oh, no, go.
I was just gonna... here's how I see, like, a possible lane swap scenario against Misfits going, okay? So ideal situation for Fnatic, right, is they send their bot lane top and they get a kill on Reckless, like doing this sort of method, right? And then they send the 2v2 back bot, but the thing is that you've already lost the bot turret. Misfits wants to take that bot 1 turret as soon as possible. You just gave them, like, what they want to do effectively, and then Ignar can roam. And when Ignar roams, like, I swear this team doesn't do anything unless Ignar initiates it. So I feel like from that point...
They don't.
From that point, you're just kind of giving Misfits what they want at level 1. And that's not something you really want to do anyway, so I think that that's an issue. So I think Fnatic want to win this matchup. They just stick to, like, the snowballing 2v2, because I feel like Misfits want to do that anyway, and Fnatic do it better. And then Fnatic will have a better ability to trade sides and answer side lanes and things like this throughout the rest of the game, and so it should be fine if they just play the way that they were playing against H2K. If they just play the way they played their first 2 games against G2, this should be an easy series for Fnatic, in my opinion.
How do you feel like the drafts are going to go? Just because we've seen both of these teams kind of go towards... And I'm not like trying to say like, whoa, like wacky cheese picks, because I think that there's definitely a method behind like the picks that they are choosing. But like something we could see here is like a weirdly contested Kale mid pick, or like everything Reckless is...
No, it was Misfits.
Yeah, it was Misfits.
Yeah, it was.
I had to go back and look, because I was
got
like, I want to make
because
sure.
Power of Evil is throwing me off, because he used to be on Unicorns and he used to play the Kale mid on Unicorns. Yeah, okay. But no, I think there will be some stuff. I think that it's pretty clear what's strong for Fnatic. Variations on roaming mids, variations on split pushing tops, as long as they don't like tunnel vision on sending someone to the bot lane to catch top, things like this. I think that Fnatic have the better setup in mid-late. Misfits really just tunnel focus Baron, so like again, that's how Misfits would win, is if Fnatic send Reckless to pincer like a side lane matchup in the top, and then Misfits just go Baron.
Yeah.
And that's also giving Misfits a win condition for them. So they're like 2 very big flaws in what Fnatic have been doing that could help Misfits a lot, but I think that as long as they avoid those really obvious scenarios, then I think they'll be fine.
Don't do the level 1 lane swap.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
So we're both giving it to Fnatic then.
Yes.
All right, so moving on to G2 Esports versus Unicorns of Love. You want to kick us off by introducing the 2 teams?
Yes, I think G2 is interesting because they've been at the top for a while, but they've shown a few holes. They lost their first series to Raka in over a year. They dropped a game to Fnatic. Unicorns of Love are kind of the new rising all-European team. People have been praising Vizicsacsi, deservedly so, because he's really strong. We almost gave our MVP to Vizicsacsi, I think. Spoiler. There are... So I think it's really interesting that this is going to be the matchup, because maybe that also attacks G2 in one of their weaker lanes as well, things like this. So this is an exciting matchup that people have been hyping a lot as close and really exciting. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this is going to be a close one?
I think G2 are going to have it again. I think that... So I know it's like further down on topics we wanted to discuss on this, but just going straight to how important bot lane priority has been in pretty much all of these semifinals, or most of them. across like all regions. This matchup is pretty lopsided in my opinion. So if Unicorns really want to attack G2 early, which is kind of how I think that most teams are looking at G2, and they're thinking, okay, where are we trying to overwhelm them first? It's definitely by attacking their early game, which is sometimes very slow. Trick, again, like as much as I have praised him and continue to praise him for being such a solid jungler for G2 and like very, very consistent, he is also a jungler who will stay in the jungle for a very long time. So that does leave a lot of opportunities open, but I think despite the troubles that Sven and Mithy may have had this split, it's still a very uneven bot lane matchup. And so if I'm G2, I'm kind of looking, if there's one point on the map that I'm trying to look at in terms of addressing our early game, it would be trying to go through the bottom lane. Another thing that I'm really interested to see is how both teams use their mid laners, because I think Exile has been like fantastic all year, and this past week we really saw Perks step up and control the mid lane a lot better. I think they also found, had it up. But yeah, they found, he's always been really good on the Echo, which I think is a strong pick for him. I think that's a really interesting point to look at as well, because previously, before these teams played, and if they'd kind of continued their trends, I would have looked at that mid lane matchup and given it to Exile. But after Perk's performance last, in the semifinals, I think that he's looked a lot stronger. And what that means for G2 is it just means if Perks can keep that lane pushed up, it does give Trick a lot more room to do what he loves to do best. And I think that'll kind of stymie a lot of things that Unicorns will want to do to G2 early. I'm not sure what you think about that.
I think neither of these teams are really big, lane crushing teams. That's not necessarily something that they're looking to do. And when Unicorns do play more of a lane crushing approach and set up 1-3-1 comps, they tunnel vision on Baron for whatever reason. And they still try to 5v5 in the mid lane and things like this. Whereas I feel like G2 are just going to draft for that better and will play to that setup better. And to your point, if they do prioritize getting a strong mid lane matchup, which they haven't all consistently done, honestly, which is really surprising considering how important strong mid lane matchups seem to be to how they want to play, then I think that G2 will have a pretty easy time in general just taking the series. The bottom lane approach, even though they haven't really played a snowball bottom lane style, and I think maybe even Unicorns of Love have send their jungler to the bot lane more. I actually was surprised that the bot lane matchup was pretty one-sided in Unicorns of Love versus Misfits. I think that Samex played pretty well. There's this joke that Hillsong initiates everything. I say joke because he does initiate everything for Unicorns of Love, but he just really sometimes will fall flat on his face in doing so. And there is a little bit of a tendency. I feel like we're having kind of our more veterans European support players in this matchup, and both of them have maybe not had the most consistent split in general. Yeah. And there is a lot of agency coming from both. Mithy likes the Nautilus support, things like this. So it will depend a lot on that addendum as well. But in general, I think that this is going to be a stronger... the bot lane isn't going to necessarily snowball really hard on either side, but it will come out to who has better lane transitions. G2 actually know how to control the side lanes, so that's cool. They don't just stack the waves, and then, because I feel like UOL and Misfits, both of those games were just both of those teams, indiscriminately stacking side waves and sending, slow pushes to the side. And then so one of the top laners would just go, oh, thanks for the free level, right, to the side. And then they would just go back mid and team fight again. And it was really ineffective. So I think that G2 have a better understanding of how to Title 1-4, things like this, and might distract Unicorns of Love from the Baron. I do think you have to give Unicorns of Love a lot of credit for their Baron control and their Baron setups in terms of how they use vision and things like this, but ultimately for me it's just like G2 seem much stronger in terms of strategic play and macro. Like, I don't see the bottom lane snowballing really hard on them. Generally speaking, neither of these teams prioritize like super strong mid lane matchups consistently. So I don't think it'll be a situation where Unicorns of Love just get Exile a strong mid lane matchup and then Trick gets caught out blind invading and things like this. So I don't think that scenario will occur either. However, I do think that is the way to beat G2. Pick a strong pushing mid lane matchup, try to catch out Trick blind invading or doing things like this, and then like abusing the top lane matchup a lot. I think in order to beat G2, you really need to know how to trade sides for top really well. And maybe Unicorns of Love can pull that off because Vizicachi is so strong. Like, they have the tools, but I just don't see it happening.
So who are you, I guess, like, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I would predict probably 3-1 G2.
Okay, cool. Thanks for joining us, guys. You can check out all of our other content on Yahoo Esports, and we'll see you next time.